Hi, and welcome to Early Retirement Roadmap, the show where I help you prepare for and thrive in early retirement. If you're aiming for a calmer, freer retirement, sometimes the smartest move isn't buying something new, it's letting something go. Today, we're talking about 5 things you can sell or stop funding to lower your stress, cut ongoing costs, and open up room for the life you actually want in your go-go retirement year. Now, most retirement advice obsesses over what to buy or how much to save. But here's a quiet truth. Freedom often comes from subtraction, not addition. It's about releasing the stuff that owns your time, money, and mental space. There are really 2 kinds of people listening to this. One group is asking, am I ready? Do I have enough? If that's you, you'll leave this podcast with practical ways to shore up cash flow and confidence. The other group is already convinced. I'm ready. I want to make these healthy years count. If that's you, this is about removing drag so you can say yes to the good stuff more often. I'll start with the biggest dollar impact. Then at the end, I'll give you a 3-question filter I use called keep, sell, or swap, so you can test any decision fast. First, the extra large house that used to fit your life perfectly. It was the right size when you had a full table every night and a minivan in the driveway. But now life is, different. A couple friend of mine loved their neighborhood, block parties, nice walking trails, great coffee shop and restaurants 2 streets over. What they didn't love anymore was managing a 5-bedroom museum of memories and paying utilities, high property taxes, and everything else that comes with a large house. So they sold and bought a condo instead because the math surprised them. By doing so, they unlocked 6 figures of equity and cut their annual costs by owning a house by $1,000. Second, the quiet budget leak. Ongoing support of your adult children that crowds out your own retirement security. I get why this is hard. I'm a retired parent myself of an adult child. Being generous is part of being a parent. But here's a perspective check. You have a finite number of highly active weeks left to travel, learn, host, and play. Your kids have decades of runway, compounding investments, and lessons they can only learn by carrying their own weight. I know a couple that delayed retirement 3 years to help with their kids' down payment on a house. Loving? Yes. Necessary? Maybe not. Mortgages exist. Side hustles exist. And there are no retirement loans for your retirement. Help if you comfortably can, but don't trade irreplaceable healthy years for something your kids can solve with time and effort. There's a podcast I created earlier this year called How Your Kids Can Derail Your Retirement Unless You Plan for It that is devoted to this topic, as it includes how to manage this with your kids, how to set boundaries, how to plan ahead so you can protect your financial independence without guilt. All right, my third thing to consider selling is any hobby toys that turned into budget bullies. We're talking here things like boats, RVs, a classic car or 2. The pattern is common. You love the idea of the thing, but you only use it a handful of times a year, even while storage, insurance, and maintenance bills show up like clockwork. A listener shared his lovingly restored car collection was costing roughly the price of a European trip every year. Just to sit. His fix. Keep the one that sparks joy every time the garage door opens and sell the rest to people who will actually use them. He kept the thrill, he ditched the drag. Your version of that could be downsizing from an RV you maintain to a rental RV 2 weeks a year, or from full boat ownership to a local boat club pass. Same experience, but fewer fixed bill. 4th thing to consider getting rid of is having a second car by habit. Once you retire, commuting's gone. Your schedule is a lot more flexible. Yet 2 depreciating assets sit in the garage with 2 insurance policies, 2 registrations, and twice the tires. When you do retire, and if you still have 2 cars, do at least a 1-month experiment. Act as if you're a 1-car household, because with just a little planning with that flexible schedule you now have, if you're not regularly annoyed, sell the extra car and redirect that cash flow to something you'll actually remember. Use it for trips, grandkid adventures, or upgrading experiences you already love. Fifth, the stuff that carries your old identity into your new life. You can't sell it on eBay, but it costs your attention every day. Titles, plaques, routines, and the reflex to measure your worth by productivity or status. A retired executive friend told me he kept signing up for committees because he didn't know how to stop being the guy in charge. He wasn't bored, he was unpracticed at being a beginner again. The breakthrough was replacing who needs me with what lights me up now. He tried woodworking, took 2 classes that had nothing to do with his old job, and started mentoring once a month on his terms. He didn't abandon accomplishment, he redeployed it toward a life that felt lighter. Let's now talk about the decision filter I promised. Keep, sell, or swap. 3 questions, no spreadsheets required. Question 1, does this serve my next chapter or my last chapter? If you strip the nostalgia, would you rebuy it today for how you actually live now or plan to live in retirement? If the answer is it reminds me of who I was, honor that and then design around who you're becoming. Question 2, what's the real all-in cost? Not just the payment, add insurance, taxes, utilities, storage, maintenance, and the sneaky one, your time. Also add opportunity cost. If this item vanished and you had the cash back, what would you do with it that would make future you smile? Question 3, what becomes possible if I release it? Fewer bills is obvious, but what about mental bandwidth? Fewer decisions, less I should really lurking in the background. Sometimes selling one thing gives you 5 hours a week with 3 tips a year you actually take. Here's your practical field test, the 60-day swap or less depending on the item. So if it's 60 days, live exactly as if the thing is gone. Park the RV and rent a weekend cabin instead. Don't touch the second car. Put a sticky note on your calendar every time you feel true inconvenience versus mild habit itch. At the end, you'll know if you missed the thing or if you missed the idea of the thing. That clarity is gold. And if 60 days seems too long for this test, feel free to swap it for 30 days. And also a quick word on swap, because sometimes the answer isn't sell, it's change the form. Swap full ownership for access, memberships, rentals, peer-to-peer sharing. Swap the big house for the right size place in the same neighborhood. Swap paying your kids' bills for helping them build a plan and matching their effort. Swap identity maintenance for curiosity and play. Here's the deeper promise of this whole exercise. Retirement isn't deprivation, it's optimization. You're not shrinking your life, you're editing it. The happiest retirees I know don't own the most stuff. They own the least that gets in the way. Every item you keep taxes your attention. Every bill you owe rents space in your head and uses your retirement funds. Freeing those up is how you trade money for time and time for memories. If this podcast helped, be sure to share it with other folks that you know and write a review. And for a great companion piece to this podcast, listen to my podcast on the 7 assets to avoid for retirement so you don't add new drag while you're removing the old drag. And when you're not on the go, Early Retirement Roadmap is available on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and until next time, this is Mike Upland, early retiree last year at the age of 55. Take care and make the most of today.